Shading can be tricky. Sometimes our shadows can feel a little flat or strange, and we don't know why. But don't worry, there are a lot of little things you can add to your shadows to really make them stand out. For this stream, I was illustrating characters for cards, but this time I wanted to draw the character with more luminosity and depth since most of the time I optimize my drawing style to be quick for streams. These are the livestream highlights where I talked a little bit about some advanced shading techniques that can really bring your characters to life, like subsurface scattering, body blushing, and bounce light, all done in Medibang Paint Pro. If you'd like to see the live stream in its entirety, it's still available on our channel to watch in full, link in the description. But if you'd like to catch one of them live so you can ask me questions and interact with other viewers, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll know when to catch us live.
So SSS stands for subsurface scattering, and if you don't know what that is, subsurface scattering is if you hold your hand up to a light. Like if you look, hold your hand up to a light, hold it next to a lamp, you should be able to see there's redness coming from around your fingers, right? That's subsurface scattering, and that's what makes your shadows look a lot nicer. Your subsurface scattering is kind of adding that redness back in to your shadows. And again, I usually like working with a square. It's kind of messing around with me right now, but kind of adding this extra red shadow to the edges of your kind of red thing, to the edges of your shadows, make things look a little bit nicer. I always find blend is smooth. Yeah, kind of adding that little bit of extra red, you zoom out, it looks a little bit nicer, right? It feels a little bit more like human skin. Right, so I usually have one layer for this subsurface scattering, I usually have one layer for extra bounce light, and then I have one layer for light, or highlights and whatnot, and body blushing, which I clip directly back onto my color layer. This is why I have one layer where I clip extra shadows onto, and then I have one layer where I clip on extra, like I have two color layers, right? So I can clip two separate things instead of just the one. And all I'm really doing is just hitting Alt back and forth. Alt is the shortcut for your eyedropper, so if I just kind of click the eyedropper back and forth. So if you've ever wondered how some artworks look just a little bit more like they're like slightly more lifelike, this is why. Because they're probably using something kind of like subsurface scattering. Your subsurface scattering should be super noticeable on your ears, right? Because your ears are very thin. The areas where it technically has the most subsurface scattering are your nose, your ears, and the tip of your chin, actually, and your fingers, the tips of your fingers. I also like to add a little bit of bounce light with this one as well, so that's just some extra color. Just gives your shadows a little bit more dimension, I think. And this is a little bit of bounce light. So when you're working with your bounce light, again, don't add it crazy amount. Some people will add another layer, usually I would too, but I'm like too lazy right now. But don't add it in a crazy amount, just enough so it feels like it has a little more dimension. Right? So if I turn this off, right, you can see the difference in how the shadows look. So this just gives it a smidge more energy, I think. Wings are fun because the feathers are actually translucent, so you can kind of mess around with how you want the light to pass through them. Right, so if you think of wings, right, it's basically like a hunk of flesh and then there's feathers attached to it, right? So like it will kind of pass through the same way that skin might. Okay. So here's the reason why I have multiple layers for different things, right? The reason why I kept my color layer completely separate from my shadow layers. Let me just create some new layers. So this is my body blushing layer. So this is me adding on even more kind of like dimension to what I'm illustrating here, right? Let's make that a little brighter. So this is me adding on extra shadows and blush to the face. Body blushing is a doll artist technique. Generally what you would do is you would blush certain areas of the body to make it feel a little bit more alive, right? So that goes across the face, goes on the fingertips, goes on the elbows, the shoulders. Yeah, adding some body blushing, some extra gives it your character just a little bit of extra dimension. Right, so again, on your joints is where you would normally body blush. So on your fingers, on your shoulders, your knees, your toes. And I need to add another clipping layer for my highlights. Alright, so just some extra highlights. Right, finding out where light will hit on the body. So definitely on the top of the nose, maybe a couple on the cheeks. Do a little bit of extra on this as well. I'm just gonna work straight onto the shadow layer for the heart here. This thing, I think it's a lute actually, I don't know what this is. Because metal and shiny things do need to be blended just a smidge differently, right? Especially with metal, the shadow, the shines and everything like that are a lot more concentrated. Again, with more of the shiny things, you have a bit more of a concentrated shadow, so not necessarily like, you don't really have to blend it in quite a crazy amount, because metal shadows are very, very, you know, harsh. How blended in you make it is how much it will scatter the light. And metal doesn't do that quite as much. Now what I'm gonna do, take my line work layer, protect alpha, and now I'm gonna color in some of my lines. Now coloring in lines just, again, adds a little bit more dimension to piece as a whole. Right, so it feels a little bit, so your line work feels a little bit less flat. Right, so concentrating it to some areas where there is more light hitting it. Again, still understanding where my light source is coming from. So we have our full angel here. That's kind of like the last step of what I would normally do, but not quite. So what I would do, close this whole folder, Control-C, Control-V, because you can't add clipping masks onto folders here. So now I have a full merged angel here. I'm just gonna name this merge real quick. And create another clipping mask over here to do the final step, which is to add kind of a fade with my limbs into the background. So now we have the full angel here. Let's put this all into a folder once more. I'm just going to name this something else. Instead of just folder 12. IMG stands for image. Select them all, drag them in, and close it. Alright, so now I have everything in one big layer. Easier to distinguish. Now I'm going to create another folder underneath here. Name it EKG, short for background. No, I guess I can just keep it as it. Let's create a new layer in here. F for flat. So again, I don't want to take away too much attention from the main angel figure here. So we're just going to do a nice and simple blue background. I'm going to lock this real quick. Protect alpha. I'm going to use a gradient. I hate using gradients, but just for this once. I usually always say don't use a gradient, but I will do it this time. Right, so nice kind of blue that fades into the pink, right? Nothing too crazy.
This was a card illustration done for Valentine's Day, so if you want to watch this drawing in real time and see how I drew the background, check out our livestream replay, link in the description below. I hope these tips can help you the next time you shade a character. If you liked what you saw, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an upload. Join our art community with the links down below and support us on Patreon, where you can download my working files like this one and get perks like classes and critiques. If you enjoyed this video, here's a couple other videos you can check out next.